world fraught with confusion, one man will break his silence.
So the stiffness of this bike is its key attribute, but also its downfall. Stay tuned to find out more. Right, well that's the road section done. We're about to get dirty. And in this video I'm going to do a long-term review of the TCR Advanced SL and tell you why I can't recommend it, not in this format at least. Let's get onto the gravel. It's not too chunky. TCR handles it fine with the right tyres, but I am wary of getting a puncture. But this Strada Bianca, yo! Well, it was only a matter of time. Just got flat. Just had to get out of the wind, but this is quite a good spot to show you the bike. We're going to do a long-term review. I've had this bike since 2022, I think, or 2021. It's the current model generation. And we'll come on to it, but the reason I've got this one is because the green metallic one of the previous model generation, so that was the model year 16 plus, exactly the same frame. I bought that frame only, brand new in the UK, and I warrantied it because the seat post clamp was loose and it was damaging the seat post. Spoiler alert, this one's no better. It's exactly the same, and a lot of TCRs still have that problem, and it seems like the Propels have got that problem as well. But let's look at the rest of the bike. It's a great all-road bike. It's not designed to be an all-road bike, it's designed to be an aggressive race bike, which is kind of the flagship of the Giant road bike range. But you can fit 32 or 34mm tyres in it. These are 32s, and there's still plenty of space. Probably could squeeze a 34 in there, so it's quite a wide rim. There's 21 or 23mm internal, I think. I wouldn't normally run Vittorias. These are the cheaper Corsa Next, but because we're on this gravel, the Conti 5K TRs are basically they're an asset to the Peak Talk consortium. They are on the books, and I don't want to damage them because they're super expensive to replace. So these are kind of my winter hack tyres. Now the reason why I'm riding this bike off-road on the gravel today is because my Shimano cranks, my oldest pair of Shimano cranks that are on my gravel bike, finally split. So they're in the shop, and I think Madison in the UK are quoting like a 6-week lead time on the replacements. But instead of fumbling around trying to put my nice Rota Aldo cranks on the gravel bike, I've just thought, why not just bring the road bike and gravel shoes, Favero pedals. I've done a lot of testing on this bike with Favero pedals anyway, so I'm very used to riding it with off-road shoes. And yeah, it's just a great all-round bike, apart from the seat post clamp issue. Now, like I said, loads of tyre clearance, which I think was ahead of its time, considering this must have being started to design in sort of 2018, I think. So considering, you know, the trend now is to have, some bikes now don't even have 32mm clearance. Well, this has probably got clearance of 34s, maybe even a 35 if the rim's a bit narrower. And before you ask and litter the comment section, I made that mudguard. It's not something you can buy, but I have got a video of how I made that on my channel, so I'll leave a link to that in the description below. Just saves me time answering that. But basically, I can't believe, this is the reason I can't really recommend this bike for people asking, should I buy the ISP version? I would say no, don't buy the ISP version. It has a few drawbacks. One is that it's mega stiff, and I just believe for most like Northern Europe roads, it's too stiff because at the clamped interface on the sliding seat post, it's not perfectly cantilever built-in fixture. You do get a little bit of pivoting, and the deflection at the saddle is a lot more on the sliding seat post ones, and makes the bike a lot more comfortable. This is quite a bruiser in terms of the vertical compliance. And basically, this has just always been a pain from new. It's why I warranted the old one. The tolerance on the CNC machining of the metal part is too loose, and then when you put it on, it's just so much clearance on the ISP. And a Giant is saying that's paint tolerance because some bikes in different colour schemes have different paint thicknesses, but it's way more than that. It's like a millimetre too loose on some of the worst ones I've seen. On the green one, which I warranted, it was about 0.5 mm too big, and the more you tighten it up, the more you deform the internal shape of this, and it pinches the back of the seat post, and you get telltale like paint coming off at the back of the seat post underneath this clamp. And what I did on the last one, which I showed everyone, was I actually used very, very thin shim steel to pack it really tightly. So basically when it pushed on, it was a really nice push fit and you barely needed to knit the clamp up. And it was much kinder to the seat post, but it wasn't really a solution on a flagship high-end bike frame that cost me £2,000 at the time, and that was in the sale. I travel with this bike a bit, and sometimes I have to take the seat clamp off to get it in the bike box. The shim steel was a bit fiddly, and it's so sharp at the edge it's going to actually cut you when it's like 0.1 shim steel. So on this one I've used like the InvisiFrame stickers, which are quite thick, PPF style stickers. It's not quite as good as the shim steel because it's not quite as thick, but it's okay. I don't really care anymore because I'm not going to buy another TCR. It's time to move on for me. So if you are going to buy a TCR, it's a great all-round road bike, and like all road bike, one of the best all-rounders there is. I think Giant, in terms of the engineering, are way ahead of everyone else in terms of the QC in general with the amount of bikes they pump out, especially on these ones which are made in Taiwan, the top end ones. But they really need to sort this. It's a design fault, basically. It shouldn't be like this. And the other problem is where the ISP butts up against this. As you know, I make the cutting guides to get the cut exactly flat and square across the top here. It's still not a nice interface because you've got a metal abutment on the thin carbon at the top of the seat post. And it's metal on carbon, and it starts to peel away the laminate at the top because all your rider weight goes through that abutment. This clamping force isn't enough to react any rider weight, so all the rider weight goes through the metal to carbon abutment at the end. And what I've started to sell now on my website, well, you know, it's not exactly going to make me rich, but I use it in here, is a rubber spacer. So it's a 2mm rubber top hat for the ISP that provides a bit more cushioning, and it sort of spreads the load out over the carbon a bit, because you're never going to get the cut perfectly flat. It's just impossible. Even if it's filed nice and square to the edge like I show you here, it's nice to have that slight little kind of compliant interface to it. It's a bit kinder to the carbon. So they're on my website if you want to pick one of those up. But the other thing I like about the bike is it's got a full width PF86 bottom bracket shell, which affords you large chainstays for pedaling stiffness and good tyre clearance. Anything narrower than that, this is why I don't like external kind of, on road bikes, I don't like the external bearing cut ones, because you lose a lot of chainstay width because the shell becomes narrower. You either lose tyre clearance or chainstay width, or both. The other thing I like about this, easy to travel with because the cables are external, whip the handlebars off, stick it in a bike box. And that is a question I get asked a lot. Does this fit in a bike box? Yes, it does. If you take the cranks out, this is an XL. The seat height is 835 to 840, depending on how flexible I'm feeling and what stem I'm running. But it will fit in a bike box if you take the cranks out and the seat off. It will fit in my bike box, which is the Polaris Bike Pod, which is my favourite bike box ever because it's really small and compact. It doesn't leave a lot of space for other stuff, but it's very compact and lightweight, and it'll fit in a bike box Allen. It won't fit, even with the cranks out, in a Evoque bike bag. But quite frankly, why you'd use a soft bag for your pride and joy, I don't know. I wouldn't risk it. I'd never use a soft bag. I've seen too many seat stays that have come out of Evoque bike bags that someone's just trodden on. Obviously a baggage handler's just trodden on and it's game over. So hard case is the way forward. It does fit in a hard case. You just need to obviously whip the cranks out. And if you've got Shimano cranks, that's dead easy. Even on this Cork GXP, I think it's an 8mm Allen key to get one of the cranks off, and then boom, the cranks are out. It's not a deal breaker. It's just one bolt. So happy days. But yeah, apart from the ISP and the seat post, I love this bike. I can't really fault it. The alternative obviously is the Advanced Pro, which has got the sliding seat post. Now I would recommend that because I don't believe that ISP is worth the extra money. I think it actually detracts from the ride comfort, and I would go with the sliding seat post version. Now I do have the sliding seat post version in the rim brake bike, as you know, and that tends to be my travel bike, but that is the model year prior to this, so that's the model year 16 plus, and that is a 2016 bike, still going strong. Not as much tyre clearance as this one. I think it's sort of max 30mm on the back of that one, and obviously it's rim brake, so you struggle to get anything bigger than that anyway. But on that one I did actually file down the internal part of the rim brake caliper a little bit, and the lever arm of the front mech to be able to fit 32 in the back, and it just fit. But that has a problem in itself. So the seat post on that one, I've actually cracked 2 seat posts on the sliding seat post version by the clamp interface here. Now I've never gone above the 7 Nm, which it's stated on there. I mean, I never would go to 7 Nm with an M5 bolt anyway, because it yields at 5. So what the hell's that about? But yeah, it seems to have cracked over time 2 seat posts. Now where it's cracked is right in the corners, and well, I've been kind of investigating into this. They made a running change on the clamp design, and they took off the sharp corners of the clamp, and where mine is cracked is right in the corners. And if you make the clamp up to the seat post, it pinches on the corners before the rest of it comes into contact. So out of tolerance, there were no chamfered edges on any part of the clamp touching the carbon, and that's just a no-no. It's basically a knife edge. And over time, it cracked one seat post. I bought another one. They wouldn't warrant it, and it's done the same to the second one. It is cracked, and I've still used it. I used it in Mallorca and Gran Canaria. Didn't have a problem, but it's going to need another seat post, a third seat post. Now on the new one, so this model year generation, they've made a running change to the expanding wedge, like I said, and cut the edges off. Wasted money spending 2 seat posts on that bike. So I'm really pissed off with Giant. It's supposed to be the pinnacle of QC, and this thing and the seat post wedge on the other one have just let it down. The other thing, before I forget, is, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but this seat doesn't sit straight with the top tube. It never has. And I've spoken to a few other people with TCRs, and they've got exactly the same issue. And also you can't adjust it because it's it's an ISP. You can't twist the seat. There is no way of adjusting this. And when you put it on and it's loose, you can get it to sort of wiggle about the middle. As soon as you start tightening up the bolt, it cocks over to one side. And by the time this video goes out, if I can get to my workshop and I'll put the laser level on it, and you'll see the laser going down the center of the saddle and off the top tube, you'll see what I mean. But if you don't think about it, you don't really notice it. It's so minor. And sometimes I think maybe it's my eye. But if you start to think about feeling it with your legs, you can feel it on your right thigh more than your left thigh. And it's just an absolute pain in the arse. So come on, Giant. You've known about these issues, the ISP issue, since 2016 or before that. And you still haven't fixed it. And it's the same on the ISP, on the Propel. So you really need to sort it out, because apart from that, I really do love TCRs. But I think this is going to be my last one, unless Giant can prove me wrong and want to send me a test bike. So if Giant UK are watching, the marketing team, send me a test bike of the new one when it comes out in 2025. And we'll see if you fix these issues. It's those 2 things that are really holding it back. Otherwise, for me, it's the perfect bike. One more thing, actually, that I don't like on the bigger sizes is the very, very slack seat tube angle, which is 72.5. It's half a degree steeper than the old one in the XL, but it's still a bit too slack, which is why I got the seat all the way forward. But yeah, 8 out of 10, I reckon. Last night, for me at least, the new TCR 2025 frame was released. So just do my quick thoughts on it. Obviously, I've not seen it in the flesh. So integrated cables on the front end. They've made a fork where the cables are running inside the frame. That's actually done by a company called EXS just before this was launched. So you can actually buy that for your old TCR if you want to take the risk of slightly unproven design. But yeah, cables are going underneath the stem, which is good, not fully internal. So when you're traveling with a bike, in bikes like my sizes, in the bike box, I have to take the bars off and put them kind of down the side of the fork. And if you run the cables underneath the stem, it just gives you a little bit more free wiggle room to run the cables, and you don't have to be so perfect on the cable length. I say cables, I mean hydraulic hoses. What else? Frame shapes are more or less the same. They've gone for a squarer back seat tube, more of the D-shaped seat tube. That may make it a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more kind of bending compliance. Second moment of air of that shape is probably lower than the aerofoil, but it all depends on the wall thickness as well, which I don't know. But can they do the basics right? Can they get the ISP clamp to not be wobbling around like it has been on the last 3 generations? I mean, this bike is £12,000 for the top one, and they might just supply you with like crappy frame protection stickers to make up that baggy fucking tolerance. It's absolutely inexcusable. And they're going on about, oh, we're saying 40 grams here, we've made it 0.5% stiffness to weight ratio, all this bull. Get the basics right, Giant, come on. I really hope this is not going to be a problem on the new one. I'm not buying a new one until I've tested it, because the current design damages the carbon. It's just inexcusable. And as you've seen, the seat on mine is not even straight, and I've spoken to others with this model generation TCR, and their seat isn't straight either, and it's just unforgivable. And on the marketing bullshit, they seem to have dropped the whole robotic automized layup process claims from this model generation, which I'm riding now, and it seems the new one has all gone back to being hand laid up with really long man hours, like 12 hours of processing involved. And on the last one, they were harping on about how they were using robotics to lay out the frame and saving man hours. So I don't know, was that just marketing? But yeah, it's highly impressive, the new layout schedule, to get a bike with that little number of swatches. Don't get me wrong, I think they've nailed the layout. I mean, come on, I want a straight seat, and I don't want it to wobble around, and I don't want it to damage the ISP. I hope to be proven wrong. I hope Giant UK, I'm going to get in touch with them and see if I can get a sample, like a media marketing sample. So I'm not buying another one until I know it's good. Geometry hasn't changed, still pretty old school. Really slack seat tube angle on the old bike, on the big frames. Don't like that. Have to ram the seat far forward. And yeah, still long and low. But cheers. See you later.